Okay, steel repair. Again, we're going to have places marked out on the plan for steel repair, for beam repairs. And a lot of times they're more accurate than the concrete repair. You're not sure though until you get it clean. Pack rust is I think an eighth of an inch of rust. An eighth of an inch of your base metal, an eighth of an inch of that beam, if it turns into rust, can be 3/4 of an inch thick when it's in the rust state. So until you get, you can have a beam that looks terrible and it's got these big old flakes of pack rust on it, but you really can't tell how much section loss you've got until you get all that cleaned out. Now section loss, we were talking about yesterday, section loss, if you don't know what that is, one of the common places you'll get a beam deteriorating is right in here. And you may have something like this happen. All that ends up being rust, and you'll see these big old flakes of rust out here. When you get all that cleaned off, your beam ends up looking like this. So if this beam started out at 3/4 of an inch, you may only have 1/4 of an inch left right here. That's your section loss. You have lost a 1/2 inch right there. Lost a 1/2 inch of section. There's various ways that you can determine how much you've lost. I made a gauge. I took some wood, drilled a hole in it. I got a plunge gauge from Harbor Freight. Fit perfectly down this little hole. So what I could do is I could set that block of wood on the beam, zero the gauge out, and start moving it around, and it would tell me what section loss was on that side of the beam. So get your boss to get you a $30 plunge gauge at Harbor Freight, piece of wood, and you can do a very accurate job. But again, you don't know until it's clean what you've actually got. So normally the procedure is going to be, if you got paint in the contract too, they're going to come in, do their sandblast and everything, put their primer coats and maybe a coat of paint on, and then you start in on your steel repair. This one's pretty nasty. This was right down the road from Aaron's office, Aaron Powell's office. That was a complete failure. And you can see, this is a good picture to show. Sometimes the deterioration on these beams is going to run up inside a concrete diaphragm. You're going to have to chase it up in there, do the repair, and then you'll have to put the concrete back, do a concrete repair for your diaphragm. You can see this one's a very, very good example. Exactly what we're showing right there happened. And you can see how thin this is, and the web has turned into a little S. It failed. And there's 100% section loss. Okay, these are your rules of thumb. Everybody says, okay, how much is too much? At what point do I need to start cutting out to the back? Or at what point do I need to start cleaning? Well, these are the rules of thumb, and you may see these in the notes on your plans. We're going to make these presentations available so you can go back and have it for a reference later. But if you have anywhere on the web section loss greater than 25%, then you need to do a repair. For stiffeners, you got two different scenarios there. 50% if it's over a foot, 75%. You'll trigger it if it's over 4 inches. So bottom flange, 50% section loss within 8 foot of the bearing. 25% section loss beyond that. Now the reason is at the very end of the beam, at the bearing, that's where you got the most shear on that beam. That's the most compression on that beam basically, and that is where the web is trying to be crushed the most. You got the most moment out at the middle of the beam. That's where the flange is the most important. So the repair you make or the section loss that's important depends on your location on the beam. And any place you got 100% section loss, repair that. This is a sheet that's going to show your steel repairs. Each one of these little circles and arrows is showing, and of course, where's the most common place you're seeing right here? Right at the end of the beam. Why is that?
Water.
Water. You got an open joint. Water. The joint is failed. All that brine, salt water coming through there and deteriorating into your beam. And the reason they look like that right there is water's laying on top of that flange up against. That's where most of your deterioration is. You got two different types. Here's for the intermediate. Notice you got dimension A and dimension B. So all these right here that you see that have just got dimension A and B, that's the type of repair you're looking at. Or you got this one, which is normally what you're going to see at the end of the beam. It's kind of an L shape. You got dimensions A, B, C, and D. Again, these are estimated, and until that rust comes off there, you don't know. So you may end up having to get more. You may end up having to go a little further depending on the situation. If you think you need to go further, raise a flag, talk to somebody, see how much further they want to go. All right, sometimes you'll have fit up problems. You got one beam you're repairing right in the middle. It's 40 years old. You got a bunch of pack rust, and by the time you get everything sandblasted, you look at it, and all of a sudden you've got some extra room in there. It's not completely barren. Could be because of where that rust is not anymore. Workmanship can cause some fit up problems, and warping while welding. If you've got an odd shaped piece of metal like that, you're basically taking a T-section, cutting out a T-section from the beam and welding a T-section back. Differential heating across that section can make the metal move around and warp. We've got some great guys in M&T that are more than happy to come out when people start welding on structural steel and help you out and help you through problems like that if you see it. This picture right here, the only thing I have for straight edge was a fire extinguisher, and that's on the web. But you can see that web's not straight. You can see right here, this was a little harder to see, but this is the original beam. This is down through here. This is your repair. You can see that's the angle the old beam, the bottom flange is sitting on. There's your repair. So be on the lookout for that. Your eyes are one of your best tools. Plate repair is when you're bolting, you know. We don't see as much of that, and I'm not really sure what the method to the madness is on when structure management calls for one or the other. Anytime I've got somebody doing a plate repair, I want them to take something and seal around that plate where you can get moisture in between the two plates. I want whatever, silicone or something in there all the way around to seal that off. If you see something like this, is a little pigtail on the side of the beam. There was a logging company right down the road from this. Get off I-40, come around the loop, and you run under this bridge. And I don't know what hit it, but it peeled up the corner of the flange. Now, structure management looked at it and thought it's not that big a deal. We don't need to repair it, but they wanted it removed. And why anyway, it got left there. We don't want that there because we always want something like this to be removed, and we want the base metal to be ground until everything's nice and smooth. One of the places that you have a potential for a failure on something like this or a crack to start is when you've got a little inside corner. If you've got a filleted section, something rounded off, then there's no place really for a crack to get started good. If you've got a little inside corner like this, a crack is going to want to start off in that corner and propagate out. We had to do repairs on Green River Bridge years ago, and there was cracks in the structural steel. One of the solutions for that was they would find the end of the crack and drill a hole at the end of the crack, and that would stop the crack from going any further. It didn't have that little wedge place to continue propagating on. So if you see something like that, talk to somebody. You're probably going to want to at least cut that off and grind everything smooth where the crack can start. You will have a detail like this in the jacking plan, in your plan. Just because that is in there does not guarantee the contractor that he is going to be able to use this. That's just in there to say this is one of your possibilities. The new special provision will be a little bit more clear about that, but we have got into some arguments every now and then about that. Sometimes it's going to be a lot more complicated than just putting a jack under a diaphragm on top of the cap, which is what you've got right here. There's your diaphragm, your cap, you put the jack in there beside the girder and lifting it up. You need to have a jacking plan approved before they ever jack anything up. That's one of the submittals that they should be sending in, and you should get back before anything gets jacked up. One of the things I always want to see on this is the engineer that designed it ought to be telling somebody whether you can have live traffic on this after it's jacked up or not. Sometimes that can make a big difference as to your traffic control and what you're going to be able to do. If you're out here on 77 somewhere, necking everything down to one lane in order to jack this up, it's not going to be a very attractive option. So we need to know whether we can do that or not. And again, just because it's in there doesn't mean that that's what you're going to be able to do. Here are some things that I've seen. They had a little bit of a berm out in front of the cap. They had put some cribbing in there, jacked up off the end right here. This guy took out a lot more beams than I was wanting to. Got to looking at this. Rarely ever should you see somebody taking the top flange out. If anybody says they want to take a top flange out on what you're working on, you need to holler at somebody else and get a second opinion on that. Some of these guys get a little cut happy. Here, this is one of the most extreme cases you'll see. This is called a strong back. Over here you've got the approach slab. This is your deck. So out here on the approach slab you've got another tower like this. These all threads right here are going completely down through the deck and they are holding the deck up. So you've got basically a stiff leg out here, a stiff leg out here, and this all thread is pulling up on the deck, holding the end of the deck up. So you might even see something that extreme. This is that same bridge down underneath where they had the end of the beam cut out.